because my 99 problems with leadership and one tip of the week is embrace the difficult. Embrace the difficult. If it were easy, everybody would do it. Anybody could do it. But you were chosen to be a leader. You were chosen to lead that team. You were chosen to speak that vision and to see it come forth. You were the one chosen for that. And it's supposed to be hard because you were meant to overcome that difficult, that hard. So invite it. You want it, right? Because these are the things that you are put here for. I am blessed when these difficult things come up because I know that I put here specifically to handle it. That's why we're leaders, because there is an assumption that as a leader, we could deal with the difficult things.
Don't fall into the trap of being a leader who overpromises while under-delivering. Do what you say you're going to do, right?
You can be a leader, but a leader is a developed set of skills. It's a developed set. State of mind. State of mind. State of mind. State of mind. State of mind.
Once again, it's on Leadership State of Mind. Back at you. One more game. Listen, these are the days that I love when I get to talk with my great friend, Tony Armon, about the thing that we love the most, and that is leadership. So welcome. Welcome on in. Tony, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. This is also my favorite time. We continue to struggle to find the time to make this work with Japan to Hawaii, bro. But every time we link up, it's always a blessing. It's always great to chat with you. I'm doing great, man. I'm feeling recharged, rejuvenated. I wouldn't have told you that 72 hours ago.
No doubt.
As we've talked about on this show, the ability to self-regulate, the ability to understand yourself and get you back to the green, man, is inherently important. And the family had a trip back to the East Coast, and it was great, man. Got to see family, got to see friends, got to hang out, got to party, got to laugh. We had a really good time. We were really busy, and I came back from New York to Hawaii, and my biological clock was messed up, and I was tired. So I'm glad we took a couple days before we hopped on to do the podcast. But yeah, man, it was a really good leave. It was cool to see my kids with all their cousins and grandparents.
Yeah.
That was great. And I'll call myself out now. I was at the Justin Timberlake concert with my wife. I'm not a concert guy.
Yeah.
But he put on a good show. I appreciate his effort to do a little Frank Sinatra, New York, New York. But I mean, honestly, the highlight of the whole thing, man, was my wife was standing up, laughing, smiling, dancing for 3.5 hours, and like seeing her happy was pretty dope. So it was a good trip. We had a lot of fun, did a lot of stuff. Our 4th of July experience was great, and so we already rebooked a bigger, better version for next year, and we gonna run it back. So
That's
it was
awesome.
cool, man. Yeah, man. I can't complain at all, bro. How about you?
Yeah, man. There's been a lot of travel. Like dude, I'm gonna tell you, having to go to the McPond Leadership Mess Symposium, which was super dope. But first, having to go to Bahrain,
I'll be able to go.
Having to go to Bahrain first, flying from Tokyo to Bahrain, spending 17 hours on the ground doing some site visits, leaving at 2:00 in the morning, hopping on a plane, Bahrain, London, land, like 3-hour layover, London to Charlotte to DC. Get in, have a wonderful symposium, great time, great mentorship there. Leave 3 days later and fly and I was able to find a direct flight directly from Washington, DC, back to Haneda, back to Tokyo. So while you are, rested and rejuvenated, so to speak, I am still recuperating. So yeah.
How long is the flight from DC to Tokyo?
14 hours.
Ugh. Yeah, okay. That's a
So
long
you know
one.
your boy had to upgrade the flight.
Oh yeah, I'm about to say you had to do something. Shout out
Yeah.
to whatever airline you're using for your miles or whatever you ended up doing for that upgrade. But
Yeah. Shout out to United.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, because I was thankful for that leg space. It's like, man, this is nice. This is nice.
I love it, man. Those long flights, bro, you need it. This lady,
Yeah.
I think, had a pure, like, she just felt for me or something. Maybe I was being a nice person. She hooked me up with a nice little exit row on the way back from New York to Hawaii. So that was great. I was loving the leg room.
Yeah.
I also owe you a thanks, man. Owe you another thanks, bro. You remember the last time you was here and you was just sitting out on Onai and you were like, "Yo, man, let me put some music on for you." Your boy,
Yeah.
Tom, how you say his name? Mish?
Yeah.
Yo, so hard. Shout out like just the right music at the right time. Anytime I'm like, yo, you just want some chill stuff? I was listening to that hard over in New York. Yeah, pretty solid.
Found him by accident, and I've been I got all his vinyls, bro.
Yeah.
I got all his vinyls. Like it's all fire. Tom Misch. So if you want to look it up real quick, look, go check him out. Go check him out.
It's a little different from our normal hip hop genre, but like if you need some chill stuff just to have on the background, man, it's definitely a vibe. But yeah, man. All right, so what else? What else going on?
Man, like I said, I'm just recuperating, man. And I would tell you that as I'm thinking about it, man, it was all good just a week ago, though.
Mm-hmm.
It was all good just a week ago.
It normally is. It
yeah,
normally
man,
is.
Man, I tell you, you think that your strengths are your strengths and that you can lean on them all the time. But something that you got to keep in mind, because as you continue to grow, as you continue to progress in this leadership thing, so many different perspectives begin to make themselves known. And what you believe of yourself to be a strength can in some cases become a liability. So for me personally, so I'm primarily a strategic thinker. I'm a 20 for 80 person. So if you don't know what a 20 for 80 person is, that's rooted in Pareto's law. I'll link it in the bottom for what that means. But basically, it's what every organization, every team knows, that about 20% of the people do about 80% of the work. But then you can expand that law to you can find 20%, things that don't take up as much energy. So it takes up about 20% of the energy, but the return on investment, gets you about 80%, right? Yep. So I look for those things. I go into my organization, go into my team, and I'm looking for those things that we can make minor tweaks to that's going to get us big results. But what that can look like to your people is that you don't necessarily care about the other stuff. And a lot of times, I care. I do care about those things. Yeah. But they're just lower on the priority list, and you have to make sure your people understand those things. And had a run in with, well, not really a run in, but just a conversation with one of our other leaders. And it's like, it just seems like you don't really care about this thing right here. I'm like, yeah, I care.
A little bit.
I care. But I'm focused on, I have things prioritized pretty clearly that I know I don't want to make large scale changes because people have a natural resistance to change. Yeah. So if I can figure out those things that we can tweak to get us big gains, those are the things I'm going to focus on. And it takes, it takes a little bit of insight and thought and foresight to really look into those things and dig. But it can't appear because you're focused on looking for those things that you don't care about the other things. So just keep that in mind. Your strengths can possibly be your liabilities. So
wow, I love that. Yeah, man. It's so crazy that you were talking about Pareto's law, right? That's how you say it?
Yep.
I was doing some leadership training today at one of my commands, and that came up. We went through that. So that's funny you brought that up today. I haven't actually heard that in a while. So for me, shout out to Brooke Simmons. I had the pleasure of being on I Am Beacon podcast when I was back in New York. I'm excited for the drop to that. But she was asking me about my leadership philosophy, and I was walking her through leadership through peace. And she told me I should change the way I spell peace. She said, so, okay, people, expectations, attitude, culture, and excellence. She said, you need to put 2 C's in peace and add consistency. She said, and I love it, man. She goes, listen, everything you're saying makes sense. Yeah, me too. I was like, don't be surprised. I mean, I got to figure out how to make it flow. But she just said, like, everything you're saying makes so much sense. She's like, it translates in the professional world. You know, she's a very successful businesswoman. But she just said that, why do leaders like think they have to promise these crazy things? Like, you don't have to like show up to an organization and do all this crazy stuff, man. You just need to be consistent and like do the things that you say you're going to do and execute the things you say you're going to do. And then follow your own philosophy or your own rules or your own guidance, right? Like, don't be crazy. Like, no one's expecting you to put on a cape and be Superman all the time. But as a leader, look for consistency. And I think a lot of people would appreciate just that simple concept. Be consistent. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say that this is a priority and this is our mission set, then make that the priority and make sure you're doing that. So yeah, shout out Brooke Simmons. I thought it was great. She tried to rebuild the philosophy for me, but we had a good conversation and definitely a good talk, man. So it was dope.
That's what's up, man. I'm curious to see how you're gonna flesh that one out. Are you gonna do like, you know, PEACCE or like PEACC like that? I'm curious to see how you gonna freak that. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm you know, I'm in the writing stage now, so we got time to add to it and make it right.
Yeah.
Also, also one of the best parts of my leave, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, I think both of our wives sometimes shake their heads at us at our inability to just sit still and like do nothing. It's like, hey, what's your husband's number one weakness? And it's like, oh, he doesn't know how to relax. He lacks the ability to just do nothing. But she told me that she wanted to make it a personal goal to start reading again, which I thought was amazing. You know, 3 kids in the house. She doesn't have a lot of quiet time to do that. So she was like, hey, I know you really want to finish this book, so why don't we prioritize, you know, 30 to 45 minutes every night after the kids go to sleep where I read and you write. And I was like, I want to start right now. Like, so we got a nice little plan built, and we'll see where it goes, man. But yeah,
because the book's gonna be done this year, right?
Yeah, published by 2025. That's the goal. You heard it here. I told you it was gonna happen. Yeah,
you heard it here first. Or second, or third. We may have been talking about it.
Oh man. So anyway,
so what you been reading though? So we talk about she building this habit of reading, right? So what you been reading?
Yeah, man. So we'll be talking about the blueprint and what book is going on now. I'm a Ryan Holiday fan, and I was reading something and I stopped because he dropped a new book. And so it's Right Thing, Right Now by Ryan Holiday. And, you know, he's going through this 5-part series on Stoicism. And it's like the five key components to Stoicism. And so this one is about doing the right thing. And, you know, we talk about on this podcast a lot, you know, trying to build better people. And so the context of the book looks at historical figures whose examples of kindness, honesty, and integrity and loyalty can emulate as pillars or upright living. People's inability to stand by their convictions explain why so few people are happy today, and how much happier they could be if they stood by the convictions that meant the most to them. So I thought it was very relevant to just a way of thinking and, you know, having high integrity and being a leader that people want to follow and people believe in. So that's what I'm reading right now. Pretty good so far. A couple chapters in. I have quite a few flights in the next couple of days, so I'm sure it'll be knocked out sooner rather than later.
Word.
What about you?
Yeah, so I'm reading this book called The War of Art, and so I've read it years ago when it first came out, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and I read it really, really fast. But I was just thinking about some of the things that I was working on currently, and the voice in my head just like, right, yeah, you doing too much, man. You doing too much, and I recognize it as the voice of resistance, because this book is about resistance. The War of Art is the inner resistance to progress and do these creative endeavors, right? And it's the War of Art: break through the blocks and win your inner creative, battles. And even I think about creativity even as a leader, because I think as a creative, there's a amount of courage that comes with being, that leader, right? So with regards to how you put yourself out there, how you project your expectations, all these things they issue out of your personality. So it's going to be unique to you. So therefore, it's going to be creative. It's going to be unique. And there's always resistance that is at play as we are progressing and growing as leaders. And it talks very, very, very inwardly about how to deal with that resistance. And it's a powerful, powerful book. One of the things it says that resistance is the most toxic force on the planet. It is the root of more unhappiness than poverty and disease. To yield to resistance deforms our spirit. It stunts us and makes us less than what we were born to be. If you believe in God, and I personally do, you must declare resistance evil, for it prevents us from achieving the life God intended. We endow each of us with our own unique genius. And so that's like the opening to the book. It is a phenomenal book. So yeah, that's what I'm reading right now.
I love that. So is it like religious based, or that's just
it's not religious based. It's just,
no, I was just curious.
No, it's not religious based.
Okay.
Now, Stephen Pressfield has written, he used to be like a playwright. Then I think he's written probably about between 15, 20 books. I tell you, one of the books that helped me write The Fight to Lead was, he has a book called Nobody Wants to Read Your Stuff. And it's essentially how to write for your audience. It take you out of the center, right?
Okay.
Because when we write, we are trying to appease our own kind of insecurity or whatever. It's like, yeah, this is what I want to read, but don't nobody care what you want to read.
Sure.
Because you're not writing it for other people. You're right. I mean, you're not writing it for you. You're writing for other people, right? So how to consider your audience and frame your message in a way that they can receive it. So it's real good.
Wow. I like it. I like it a lot. You said something, and I'm trying to recall what you said, because I wanted to comment on it, and I can't remember exactly what you said. Okay. Well, what
we did turn 40, so.
Oh man, here we go. That's where we're at now. All right, man. Okay. All right.
I'm already past it.
Yeah. So was that your bar, or were you spitting bars just now? Was that your quote for the book, or you got something else? You got another quote that hit you this week, or what?
No, I mean, the bar is out. It comes out of the book, but the bar is simple. Right? The bar is just, the enemy is a very good teacher, as by the Dalai Lama. The enemy is a very good teacher. All right. So, and that's directly in response to the resistance. All right. Yeah. So the resistance teaches us, about ourselves. It teaches us what our breaking points are. And I look at it through a lens of, if I'm starting to hear that voice really loud, if I'm starting to get that resistance really strong, that's my indication that I gotta go harder, because on the other side of that is something really creative, something really great, something that I haven't done before. So that's when I kind of get excited when I start hearing, like, man, don't do that. Oh, like, oh yeah, this is the pocket that I need to be in.
Okay, so for the listeners and the people watching, though, like, I wouldn't say that is inherently a skill that you have, right? The voice in your head and the resistance usually cause you to stop. So what's something that you do when you hear those voices? Because, like, when I got into running, one of the things that they told you, instead of saying, I have to go run 5 miles today, you would say like, I get to run 5 miles today. You know, it's like a mindset
Yep.
shift. What is something that you do when you start hearing those voices, start seeing those resistance that allows you to
So
like push forward?
yeah, so this is directly pertaining to writing. So
Mm-hmm.
I disconnect myself from what I'm putting on the, what I'm typing or what I'm writing,
Okay.
because I'm constantly judging how good I think it is. So I just disconnect myself and I just start writing back. I accept what it is and just continue, and I don't stop, because it's the momentum, it's the continual move forward progress that gets you through the resistance, because the resistance ultimately just wants you to stop. Because
Mm-hmm.
if the resistance can get you to stop, then it can get you to focus on something else that's not your mission, that's not your creative genius. So I just disconnect myself. I don't care how this is going to sound. I don't care how this is going to be perceived. I just go and I just keep the process going and do not stop.
I love that. And then, so what? Then you go back afterwards and kind of follow up and fix it once you
Yeah.
push
So
through.
what I found is that even if it's just a sentence, if I continue on, I'm going to uncover something that I hadn't previously thought about. Right. That wasn't a consideration previously in as I'm constructing this chapter. Right. I would just keep going, and then a nugget just kind of, I call it,
Yeah.
just nugget out of nowhere,
Yeah.
drops in. Sometimes it's a paragraph, sometimes it's a page, sometimes it's just a sentence that illuminates what I'm trying to get across.
So fight through the pain, fight through the
Through the pain.
discomfort, and just come out on the other side. I like that
Yep.
a lot. That's dope, man. Well, my bars for the week also comes from Ryan Holiday, same book. And he said, a life of integrity will cost you. It will be difficult. And yet somehow we all know that to live without it is the worst fate of all. When we see others pull ahead of us because they have acted without it, when we see them bending the rules or taking bribes, we must remember where the road ultimately ends. Integrity may sometimes be relegated to the drawer labeled too hard, but life is much harder and much sadder without it. I don't know, man. I think we look around, we watch the news, we see what's happening in politics, and this is not a political podcast, but we see, what's going on with the people around us that are supposed to be in charge and have our backs, and kind of some of the things that are happening. And I look at this and I'm like, yeah, man, integrity is something that's yours. Like, you can either choose to keep it or give it away. And if we're on this quest to become better people and to become better versions of ourselves, I think remembering how important keeping your integrity is and focusing on the things that matter to you, I just think it's a big deal.
No doubt. I love it. I'll tell you, man, my tip of the week. I mean, that's a perfect segue. Like my 99 problems, but leadership ain't one, bro. Like it just fits perfectly. I wonder how it always happens.
How do we
that
do
way.
it?
We don't
How do
talk
we
about
do
this
it?
before. We are not conversing before we do this. We just get on here, we have a conversation, because my 99 problems for leadership ain't one tip of the week is embrace the difficult. Embrace the difficult. If it were easy, everybody would do it. Anybody could do it. But you were chosen to be a leader. You were chosen to lead that team. You were chosen to speak that vision and to see it come forth. You were the one chosen for that. And it's supposed to be hard, because you were meant to overcome that difficult, that hard. So invite it. You want it, right? Because these are the things that you are put here for. I am blessed when these difficult things come up, because I know that I am put here specifically to handle it. That's why we're leaders, because there is an assumption that as a leader, we could deal with the difficult things. And then I invite, in some cases, because I may be a masochist, but I desire the difficult, because I know on the other side that it's going to be great. We are leaders because things are difficult. This is not an easy thing to do. It's not. But this is what you want. This is what you want, because it reveals more about who you are, And who you become in the process of the difficult, you become untouchable. You become unbeatable, un-F-wittable. That's who you become when you invite the difficult, when you desire the difficult, when you embrace the difficult. Nobody can defeat you, and no situation can either.
I love that, man. So you're saying hard is authorized. It's okay if it's
Hard
hard.
is authorized.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think one of the things when you think about that is sometimes people are so caught in the moment on how hard it is or how difficult it is that it becomes overwhelming. But if you take a step back and think about, like, man, how much stronger am I going to be on the other end of this? Oof. Like,
Yes.
like, man, imagine when I make it through this, like what it's going to be like and how much, like, there's just a certain high that comes with that because you're like, man, I could do anything. Like, I'll tell you that stupid marathon that I ran, like, man, like I got done with that marathon and I was like, man, I can do anything right now. I couldn't walk 2 hours later, but like for that moment, I was like, yo, I could do anything. But it's crazy that going through that, because people will tell you marathon is the first half is physical, the second half is all mental, right? You fighting with yourself for the next 13 miles. But when things come up now, like in my head, like I know that I can do it already. Like regardless of what it is, like I just have this bit of confidence. So, what Armon is saying is like embrace the difficult and don't focus on the temporary pain. Think about what's going to happen on the other side, how much stronger you're going to be, how much more prepared you're going to be, how much of a better leader you're going to be for the people you serve, your family. So I love that, man. Hard is authorized. Embrace the difficult. My tip of the week is very much in line with some of the other previous conversations. Don't fall into the trap of being a leader who overpromises while under-delivering. Do what you say you're gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So, I had some people reach out to me and they're like, hey, I'm a new leader and I'm trying to have this, really impactful first speech. And I'm a fan. I think first impressions do matter, right? But he's like, what are some of the things you think I should promise them? And I was like, whoa, not like, listen, like you don't want to make promises you can't deliver on, right? So don't fall into the trap of, first of all, before I even say that part, know what you have the authority to even give, right? Like what can you actually deliver on?
What can you actually do?
What do you control? Like what's actually yours to control? So don't give away, don't put yourself in a situation where you're promising things that you can't deliver on.
Right.
And if you can avoid that and focus on just do what you say you're going to do. Have quantitative things that are accessible to you that you can deliver to your team, and I think you'll find success.
No doubt. I love it. So we're about to get into the actual content of this thing today. And because one of the hardest things to do as a leader is, how do you measure performance? How do you determine if things are actually going well? How do you get to a point where it's like, you know what? My team is winning.
Yeah.
Other than just the outcomes, because it's natural to look at the outcomes, to look at the performance, to look at the, the metrics, the output of what you are supposed to do, the mission set, and see, okay, yeah, we're winning. But are you actually winning? Because there's multiple tiers to this. There's multiple spectrums that you have to deal with this, right? Because you can win, but not win, right?
Sure.
They call it in Greek times, they call it a Pyrrhic victory, right? You ever seen that man with the boulder? He's pushing it up the hill, right? Yeah. That's Pyrrhus, right? And he pushes it up the hill and he gets it all the way up there and he wins. But it rolls back down and he has to start back over, right?
I'm about to
it's
say,
like, yeah, you won, but you ain't won because it never stops, right? So it's called a Pyrrhic victory when it's like, hey, you won, but your people are in disarray. They're unhappy. They're not giving you any feedback. They're they're jumping towards the door as soon as they get the opportunity to. And it's just, you can feel it palpably where it's like people are just not safe. They don't feel safe in that environment, even though your output may be up here. So how do you, because I think there's two parts of this. There's the metric side. There's, hey, what can you track? Right. And there's the nuance. All right. How are you going to be able to have, because you can't put numbers on people. People don't have, progress bars across their forehead saying how happy and how safe they feel. Right. So it's a nuanced approach, and it requires, some different things to make sure that you are getting what you expect in terms of the culture that you're looking for. Right. What do you think about that, Tony?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic, right? Because as we talk about measuring performance, there's a million things that go through my head. And the first thing that comes to mind is last podcast, we talked about culture and, culture over climate, right? And how to build the right culture. Well, the things that you as a leader say are important, or the things that you put on a pedestal as like what success looks like, can drive your culture and drive the direction of your organization. So you got to be able to, as a leader, make sure that the metrics that you're using and are tracking are aligned with what your philosophy is and are getting your team, organization, to the right place. Because if those aren't all aligned, then you're not going to have, everyone's not going to be on the same page. It's going to be very confusing.
Yeah.
So that's the first kind of thought, like when I hear that comes to mind is that. And then the next one is kind of like, how much say do you have in the performance of the team, as far as like, what are we going to quantify? Like, how does that happen? Like, do you show up and you're in sales and it's like, we're good when we make goal. So like, make goal, right? But, as a leader, it's got to be more than that. Are you, I think that if you were to break down leadership, I'm sure there's lots of different ways to break it down. But I think that the simplest way to do it is, some people choose to lead through fear and some people lead through buy-in, right? There's a lot of leaders that, if you don't get your numbers, you're going to be fired. If you don't do this, then that, right? Like, if you don't do this, then that. Or there's people that create buy-in and build a culture in which people are quantifying or like focusing on winning, but through a desire to not let down the people that are in charge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. One of the things I thought about when you talked about sales and just thinking about, outputs, and kind of get into what you can measure, want to, transition into things that you can measure. Right. And I think when you're looking at that output, if you're looking at that solely, there's a lot of ways that you can get to an output. You can get to an end result. Right.
Yeah.
But what about your processes? Right? Are those processes airtight? Right? What are the habits that people are building, to get to that performance? And your favorite word, are they repeatable?
Sure.
Right? Because that's something that I think is quantifiable. Right? What are the steps that people are taking, to get to that output, to get, to that end goal, that end, right? Because the mission, for us in terms of the military, we're in an infinite game. Right, winning is not a real thing. This thing is going to continue, long after we are gone. Right, so understanding that we ourselves in the military are in an infinite game, it is incumbent upon the leader to assess those processes, because what happens when your top performer is gone?
Yep.
What happens when that top hitter, that top sales manager finds another spot to go to, or decides to move out of town? What are you going to do? Have you built the processes where you can put anybody. I'm not anybody, but you can put trained professionals in that scenario, and they're going to be able to assess, and they're going to be able to, okay, I understand what needs to be done, I understand those expectations, and I can carry that forth to get very predictable results on the other end. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing I think about is like, and this is transparent to any situation. In the civilian sector, you have the ability to hire people, right? Like you
Yeah.
get to like have interviews and choose people. So what are your standards for the people that you want to hire, right?
Yep.
Making sure you hire the right people. Then what does your onboarding and training look like? And then from there, what does your mentorship look like to be able to build the repeatable processes that you want? So for the civilian side, you know, when you're in the industry, you can create those processes if you're building the right structure. And as a leader, you need to see how fast does it take from onboarding to making goal, and what does that look like? And then how can we make that smaller, and what can we do to make that process better? Right?
Absolutely.
I feel like you had a thought when I said that. So
Yeah,
go
when
ahead.
you said so you would understand this perfectly because QA in the QA world, right? When you're QAI, you had these different points within the process called Q points, right?
Yep.
Where it's like, all right, I have to be here to observe this point to make sure you can go to the next step. It's one of those things where, hey, I'm going to make sure I insert myself in this process, in
Yeah.
this part of the process, to make sure from A to B is happening like it's supposed to, because from there, I think that this is going to continue, allow the process to continue adequately. And there may be different cue points along the way as you're getting to that end goal, right? But figuring out where you need to be as a leader, to assess, all right, are we contacting this person at the right time? Are we asking the right questions, to
Sure.
onboard people, right?
Yep.
So it's we're assessing where should you be in part of that process, or put more energy within that process to make sure that that it can naturally flow to the next step that's going to increase the propensity of getting to the right answer.
Yeah. And then from the Navy side, we get who we get, right? Like the people that show up at our commands, like they're there. So what are we doing as leaders to get them, qualified and standing the right watches and supporting the watch bill and driving towards mission? So to get the overall command or organization in the direction that you want with the performance you want, you have to either bring in the right people if you have that ability, or build a process that makes everyone aligned with what the goals are, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has a mission statement, a philosophy, right? The Navy has its core values, everyone has their own thing. So making sure that they're aligned with what that vision is, I think helps drive performance. I'm at the point now where, like, if you don't have a vision or a philosophy or a mission statement or whatever, an ethos, like whatever term you want to use for it, that everyone is aligned to and understands, I don't think you can reach maximum performance. I just don't. Anthony Amato's opinion, you can have yours, but like, how can you expect people to do their best every day and to strive for greatness if you don't have an alignment tool or a vision for them to chase? So we're going to get into how to quantify performance, but I think we can't go without saying, like, to get maximum performance, you need to make sure that everyone's pushing in the same direction and knows what the vision is.
Yeah, I will take that. I will take that a step further, right? Because we talked about this being two parts. How do you measure performance, right? And what are the things that you want to focus on to make sure that you're getting the right culture? I think that at the top of that list of things that you have to focus on is vision.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
I think I think it's at the top of that list of things you gotta focus on, to make sure, to ensure that you're gonna get the culture that you want. Because if it's very clear, without vision, people perish, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you had a couple questions you said you wanted to kind of run through, right? As far as like talking about like.
Yeah. So like when we talk about, well, I would love to get into the second piece of this, right? Because we talked about what you can quantify, right?
Okay.
So we talked about being able to, you can quantify your processes. You can assess and see whether or not your processes are actively working. That's a tangible thing, that you can look at. Also, and just like you talk about, understanding whether or not your culture is working, whether or not your team is doing, your team is being built the right way. Are the people leaving? Are you
Sure.
retaining the talent that you want? Because that's something
Ye-
that you can absolutely assess. You can watch somebody walk out the door.
I think that that's one of the most important things for me to look at. I
Yeah.
want to know what my retention looks like. I want to know, do the people that are with me, are they excited to come to work every day and like want to be a part of that? Or are they just collecting a paycheck and looking for the next best thing? So the environment you create, the culture you create, how people feel about the organization that they work for, that is tangible. If
Yep.
you're the amount of time that it takes. So let's just back this up, right? Let's go back to a sales analogy. Let's say it takes 3 to 5 months to get someone onboarded, trained, and making gold. And then someone leaves. I mean, that's a 3 to 5 month gap. So imagine if your retention numbers were in the first year 60%. If you turn that number from 60 to 80 or 60 to 90, I mean, the amount of productivity you're going to have is going to go up dramatically, right? And so this is why people first is so important to me.
Absolutely.
Because when you're doing the right things, when they're in a psychologically safe environment, when you're doing the right stuff to welcome them to the team, and you're creating the right culture and the right climate, and they feel welcomed and appreciated, and you're giving them the tools and you're mentoring them and you're training, they don't want to leave. And now, because they don't want to leave, you have more productive people that understand the vision and are pushing in that direction. So retention is a big one for me. I haven't been able to work in the civilian sector, but like I see it in the Navy for sure.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine that it wouldn't be a priority, in any organization. So retention is a big one.
Yeah, I think about, just from our nuclear trained brothers and sisters, and the investment, the 2-year investment in resources and money, to get to a place where they can operate a nuclear reactor on board a submarine, on board a carrier, and within the first 4 or 5 months of them being on board and being shown trash leadership, and then they mentally check out and say, I don't want any parts of this anymore.
Sure.
The organization at large is like, I've invested all this time and money into this person to get to this point. How dare you waste our investment with something that you can control? Your leadership, your engagement, your empowerment, your ability to make the environment safe for this person to do the best that they possibly can. How dare you? Right?
Yeah.
And watching people walk out of the door, because they don't leave organizations, they leave people. They leave bad leadership. They're like, oh, I'm not dealing with that person anymore. That person can go to where, because I can't take it anymore. And they're operating at, while they're here, they may be operating at 5%, just enough not to get fired.
Yeah.
Right. Back there was a trend about a year ago where people were talking about quiet quitting and all that. I've seen it happen in the Navy. I've watched it occur where people just like, hey, I'm just gonna do just enough. I ain't gotta hear this joker mouth. I'm gonna do my time, or not do my time, or say, you know what? I'm not even dealing with this anymore. I'm done. My mental health is not worth the continued service at this organization. And I'm checked out. I'm done. There's nothing you can get them back. And you just lost all that time. You lost all those resources. You lost all that money. And you lost that investment. All because you can control yourself. All because you were putting yourself at the center. Because I think that's the root of all leadership issues, putting yourself at the center and not considering the person that you're leading, and doing a horrible job just making sure that those people are well taken care of.
Yeah, it's sad. And you know, unfortunately, you know, depending on where you're at, man, certain people are numbers and they're not people, right? So I just
Yep.
think, you know, as we continue to talk about this performance thing, just remember that, you know, your number one product, the thing that you have that matters the most is the people that are selling or doing the thing that you need to do for whatever your vision is. And if you can't build the right culture to retain them, like there's no way you can reach maximum performance. It's just math. It's not possible.
Not possible.
So retain the
Not
talent,
possible.
man. Retain the
Yeah.
talent. Hire the right people, or work with the people you got. Train them up, motivate them, and then you gotta have better performance, in regardless of what it is.
Yeah. So those are two things that I think that are metric based that you can put they're tangible that you can put your hands on.
Yep, for
You
sure.
have the processes within your organization to lead to success that you can assess and see where you are. And then you have how your people are doing, whether or not they're leaving the organization. And I
Sure.
think that when you get into the more nuanced portion of assessing your team, this is where the challenge comes in. This is where, the not talked about a lot aspect of leadership, the intuition, kind of comes in. But there's questions that you can ask yourself that can put you in a place to really see, where your team are. One of the questions that I pose is, can your people communicate their purpose within the organization without hesitation, going back, to vision? Do they know what the vision and goal and purpose of the organization is? And can they talk about that without hesitation? What do you think about that first question there, Tom?
Well, I don't know, Armand. Are they in a psychologically safe environment? Are they in an environment in which they feel comfortable enough to bring up ideas and bring up conversations or come up with new solutions and creative things? I think if the answer to that question is yes, then I think that of course it's gonna lead to progress. You know, the people that are on the deck plate and the people that are grinding every day on the phone, selling, doing the things that they do, they see where the processes are broken.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
know. Like they know. But if you're
Because they're doing the work. They're the ones
yeah.
that's doing the work.
So, and so if you're a leader and you get hired into a company and you're in a VP of sales or some type of role where you haven't worked your way up through the company, but you were hired based on your skill set and ability, your ability to create an environment where people feel comfortable enough to explain that things aren't going right and that things need how we can fix things. That's important. It's everything. And you want to fix productivity and you want to make things better. I mean, I know we've brought this up on multiple podcasts. Like Google said it was the number one most important part of any organization, right? Is being psychologically safe, right? And no fear of retribution.
One of the largest leadership surveys that has ever been conducted.
Yep. And the ability to be able to bring up ideas and come up with solutions without fear of retribution. So to answer your question, I would say if the environment is correct, then it's an absolute win. But if it's not correct, they just gonna sit there and do the minimum and wait till the end of the day. And that whole 80-20 rule is going to be in effect. And they're going to spend 20% of the time doing the work. And you're never going to reach maximum potential.
Yeah, and I think this question is a precursor to psychological safety, right? Because if the answer to this question, can your people communicate their purpose within the organization without hesitation? If the answer to that question is yes, I think you're well on your way, to make a determination whether or not that organization, your organization or your team is psychologically safe. If the answer to that is a negative, right, then the next step is, okay, why?
Why?
Right?
Yeah.
And I always say, it starts with you. What are you doing? What are you not communicating? What are you not saying that would stop that from being a yes?
Sure.
Right? It starts with us as the leader.
Yeah.
Right? It starts with us. You can't look external. Well, the TV doesn't work, or the technology we got is outdated and all this other stuff. No. Who cares about that? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're the leader. You're accountable. What are you doing? Where the answer to that question is a negative. And then the second question that I think is a pertinent precursor, to making sure that culture is where you want it to be, psychologically safe, is, will they tell you the truth? Will your team tell you the truth without fear of retribution? Just going right back to what you alluded to, that's on, like, are they willing to come and let you know, hey man, hey, you ain't got no clothes on, bro. What are you doing?
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Right. So you want them to be in a situation where they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to say, hey, this direction, I think, is not the right one, and why. Right. And give them the space and opportunity to tell them, and be in a place of receive mode, not in the defense of, not in a mode of, let me defend my stance here. This is why I did what I did. So no, just listen.
Yep.
Active listening to respond, not react. Okay. Hey, there may be a place, there may be something that I missed here. All right. Let me be open. And sometimes you got to talk to yourself, right? Because we get attached to the things that we put forth. We get attached to our own, our own agenda sometimes. So we gotta tell myself, I gotta remain open. I gotta active listen. Sit back. Don't get defensive. It's okay. Unfold your arms. It's okay.
Yeah. Relax.
You're not being attacked.
Relax.
You are not in danger.
What is the goal here? If the goal is to have the best command, the best climate, the best organization, then who cares whose idea it is? Who cares?
Who cares?
If you had this vision of what you wanted it to be, and someone walks up and is like, hey man, your idea is not that great.
Yes.
I like your vision, but the way we're getting there, it could be improved. And they got something for you, man. You got to be able to be in receive mode. You have to be.
Yeah.
Man, well, say the question one more time, because you went on a tangent.
Yeah. Will they tell you the truth without fear of retribution?
Yeah. So I think when I hear that, I go back to something that I think is important, is that, as a leader, they have to know that they can come talk to you. And I think to do that, you have to be vulnerable with your team at times, right? You have to let them know that, hey, I don't have all the answers all the time. I'm not always going to be perfect on everything I'm going to do. If there's a better way to do it, then we can do it. But if no one has a plan, it's my job to have something, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's important, right? I think some people, they show up and they're like, I'm the boss and I'm in charge and this is how we're going to do things. I think that's fake. It's like, hey man, I'm new to this organization. I'm really excited to be here and have the opportunity to lead. My vision is this, but how we get there is the collective.
Yep.
Right? We're going to, you guys have experience and have been in these roles and done these things. And so while I continue to catch up, I might have the end game in mind, but how we get there is based on everyone's collective ideas. So you have to have the conversations to open up the door to people, for people to walk in, right? So, kind of setting those expectations and being the type of leader that is vulnerable, that is willing to take suggestions, that, listens not to respond, but listens to respond, but not to react, is important.
Absolutely.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I just see these are the metrics, right? And I talked about it being nuanced. This is not something that you can. These are not ones and zeros. It's not algorithmic.
It's not.
Right? People are heuristic, and they have feelings, they have emotions, they're dynamic, and you can't put a number on it. But you have to be aware of how these relationships, how this connection is being built, because these are the things that are going to give you the information, along with the quantifiable data, right? How's performance?
Yeah.
Are people leaving? How are our processes? Right? You combine those two, and that will truly give you a sense of where you are. Another question that I ask as well is, are they displaying personal excellence or comparative excellence? Right. And keep in mind, all these things start with a conversation.
Sure.
This is having conversations with your people, willingness to engage, to connect. Right. So if you're not willing to connect, you're not going to be able to get these answers. And you never know where you are in your organization, in your team, until it's too late. It's too late. Right. So are they displaying personal excellence or comparative excellence? And I look at personal excellence. Are they doing the best they can because that's who they are? Because they want to be excellent. They want to produce excellence. Or are they learning to the left of them and to the right of them and seeing how other people are doing it and saying, well, I'm good enough. I'm better than them, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want personal excellence. You want people that are seeking the best of themselves within your organization, within your team, rather than looking to the left or to the right, up and down, and trying to see what everybody else is doing. So it's about personal excellence rather than comparative excellence.
Well, obviously, I love that because I think we should pursue excellence on a daily basis, right?
Facts.
But pursuing excellence on a daily basis is not focusing on the person to the right or left of you, but to be a better version of yourself every day. So pursuing that excellence, but that's built from within, right? Like certain people just have that desire that just are just built that way, but not everyone's built that way. But I think you can build that within people if you have the right climate and push that initiative and explain what it means to pursue excellence on a daily basis. But that's got to be a conversation that is had, by the leadership and by the leader. Otherwise, you're going to be left with what you're left with. Because at the end of the day, performance is going to be, did we make goal? Did we do the thing we were going to do? But as a leader, how did you get there? How many people did you step on to get there? How many people did you keep up for days and weeks and not give them vacation time? And, how did you talk to them during the process, right? Like at Leadership State of Mind, like we're here to talk about performance, and performance is going to be based on wherever you are and whatever your company's goals are. But what I want you to think about is the holistic view of how are you getting to those goals, right? That's what you need to care about, because if you care about how you get to the goals, and then you care about retaining the talent that you have, and you invest in the people that you bring in because you genuinely care about them, and you're the type of leader that wants to make people better, then you can you'll never understand how high your ceiling is. You're gonna bust through that ceiling if you focus on the right things. Whatever you thought your goal was, you'll blow it out the water. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
I guarantee it. Because people will want to do the things because they care about the outcome. And if you're in a position where the more goals you make, the more money you make, then they might even be more motivated. But yeah, man, I think performance is something that, is going to be different for every organization. Even in the Navy, from one command to another, what the goal is and what performance looks like is different. But at the end of the day, if you know what the end state is and you have a vision of what the goal is, and you care about the process in the middle and how you get there, and you look at some tangible things that you can track, you end up improving your own processes and caring about the right things, which will then lead to the better culture, which will then lead to higher performance, man. It's like this circle.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I just had two more questions. Are innovative ideas coming from unexpected places? And can your people be confrontational? And I say that word loosely. Can you be confrontational without being personal? Right? And that's essentially just rooted in accountability, right? Are you willing to hold yourself accountable? Are you willing to hold your people accountable? And is the team willing to hold themselves accountable as well without making it personal, without getting emotions involved? Right? Because I think those two things in our innovative ideas coming from unique, unexpected places. Maybe that new person that just got here last week, that person that's been quiet, the introvert that's sitting in the back of the room that rarely talks, right? Are they speaking up? Are they, hey, I think we should, when you have affirmative to these questions, I think you're on the right course, to having the type of culture that's going to win. because that's the goal. Having a culture that's going to win and win infinitely, whether or not you're in a finite or infinite organization, building a culture that wins, you have to be able to assess it. You have to be able to see where you are. And these are the things that I think the quantifiable and kind of nuanced things that you can do to make sure that you are going in the right direction.
Yeah, and especially with the onboarding part, right? So, when you're bringing in new people to your team, I always reference the first 90 days. You have 90 days before you become a part of the problem, right? Like, you have 90 days before you're like a part and like engulfed in an organization. So when you have new people coming in, let them know like, hey, I need your help over these first 90 days. You have experience in this. You've seen other jobs and other similar organizations. If you see areas that we can improve upon, let us know. Like, think about how much like you're going to be able to make people feel that much more comfortable to bring things to you. You go back to your point about, are you getting advice, or what'd you say? Not advice, ideas from different places?
Oh yeah. Getting an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So if your initial thing
Advice
is like, advice, ideas, but if your initial thing to them is like, hey, like, I want to improve the processes here. So if you see things that are different or that look weird to you, bring them up. If you got areas to improve, bring them up. If you're doing that, they're going to be way more comfortable to bring it to you, as opposed to being like, I'm not going to say none of them in the first couple months. And then by then it's too far gone. Now they're just going to be like, well, that's how we always did it, so we're going to do it that way. So I think that's really important. Yeah, man, everything you're saying, it's so crazy, because when we started this topic, I thought it was going to be a lot more quantitative. But when you really look at it, the quantitative is going to be the quantitative depending on where you're at and what you're doing, right? If your goal is to build bullets, I don't know, then however many bullets you have at the end of the day is going to be what the total is, right? What's your goal? Yep. What are we trying to accomplish? Blah, blah, blah. If your goal's in sales, it is what it is. But when you look at the people side of it, it really brings a lot to the table on how to get to that maximum performance. And so I kind of like how, in my head, I had a vision of how this was going to go with the conversation, and it kind of shifted to something really dope, man, because I think it really shines a light for people on the importance of the leadership strategies and the conversations you have to get to the performance that you want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the first part of the equation. The first part of the equation is, right, the assessment piece. Mm-hmm. Now, the second part is, all right, what do I focus on? If some of these answers are in the negative side, what do we focus on as leaders? And I got to tell you, if you haven't been listening, we've been saying it over and over again. Right? And if for me personally, I'm a 20 for 80 person. I'm looking for what are those small things that we can do to get big results, right? Mm-hmm. Where can I gain the most bang, for my buck as a leader? I think that the strategy that the leader employs, to make sure that their influence is in the right place at the right time, I think that's one of the most important things, one of the most important attributes of a leader. And we've talked about it. For me, number one at the top of that list, is vision and direction. Communicating those expectations, communicating that vision clearly, concisely, over and over and over again, getting over the fear of repetition, right? Because people hear on different wavelengths, right? You got to get over that. It's like, well, I already said it. So say it again.
And then say it one more time.
Make sure they know your vision. Make sure they know your direction. Make sure your expectations are clear, right? And then, secondly, for me, if I only had two things to do, it's vision and then connection. It's called going to Gemba. Going to Gemba is a Japanese word that comes out of the origin of Kaizen, right? So it translates into going to the real place, going down to the deck plate, going down to the actual shop, going to have and build the connection with the people that are doing the things. Build those connections, understand who they are, be curious about who they are, be genuine in that connection, because all these things work in the assessment if you do those two things. What do you think there, Tone?
Well, I mean, I feel like, obviously, I can't imagine an organization that doesn't prioritize the vision, right? Like it's just got to be at the forefront. So I agree with that. And I just think as a leader, we talk about this connectedness. I had this conversation today, man. Like it doesn't have to be hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
one of the examples that I used that someone was like, wow, it's a really good idea, but it was a simple concept. I would grab my junior supervisors, the junior officers at my command, and I would do coffee with the cob once a month. Coffee with the cob. Pour a cup of coffee, sit down, 30 minutes. Hey, man, what's going good? What's not going right? How can we make things better? How's your boss doing? How's the supervisor? And it was just a conversation. And what I realized is that they never felt like they had a voice before that. Before that simple act of just sitting down and like having a space for them to talk and like bring up ideas, what it created was a ability for them to vent or talk about things that they wish we did better, or like ask for clarification on things, which made me realize like, man, maybe I'm not communicating as good as I thought I was, right? Surprise, surprise, right? We can always communicate better. So, it doesn't have to be this like grandioso, like, what the heck's the thing where you lock each other in rooms and stuff?
Like an escape room?
Yeah, like you don't need to build your own escape room and like scare some people, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like this crazy thing. Like it could just be a simple act of just going down to the deck plate, like you said, or finding some time to, do some type of lunch, like working lunch thing where you kind of like discuss conversations. And I think that helps build the connectedness. And I think when you do those type of things, you're going to see a lot more progress because the conversations are going to lead to, success. And then, I guess the one thing I would add is the training and mentorship has to be a part of what you do. You want people to be great. What does your training process look like? What does your mentorship process look like? What are you doing to make these people better? Right? Like you can't just expect them to be better. Like you have to have things in place to make sure that you're teaching them and training them, and then make sure that those trainers are the right people to do the job. I always laugh at sales. I think it's the reference that I use the most because if you're really good at selling, you're probably born with the ability to talk, right? Like you just have a gift. Like that's one of your skills. And when you're good at selling and you make goal all the time, you get a raise. And then you become a manager, right? Or a leader, as some would say.
Yeah.
Some would hope. There's no training for those people. They don't teach them how to lead. And so what do? Now, maybe some of them are God-given leaders and they got it, right? Good luck. But like overall, they're just like, well, just do what I did. Okay, well, me and you are not the same. I can't speak like you. That's not going to work. So I think having a vision is great. Connectedness is great. But then that teaching aspect and that mentorship aspect to get the team strong enough to be able to do whatever it is your company needs to do kind of ties it all in together. So that's I guess that's my thought. Perfect. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Right. Like, because the first thing that came to my mind is this. Now, statistics can be made up, but
sure.
We probably even throw a poll on the site on this one.
Yeah.
I think that 99% of leaders get into the leadership position because they're dope at their job.
Sure. I agree. Yeah.
Not because they're actual leaders.
Of course. Yeah.
There's an assumption because, you're good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's put you in this leadership position.
I'm a really good mechanic. I'm a really good mechanic. I can fix stuff. Oh, you should be in charge.
Boom.
Yeah.
Where's the mentorship? Where's the training? Absolutely, bro. That's perfect.
Yeah, man. So I think that, and that to me, that can go back to the vision and the mission statement, right? Is our goal is to do this, but we're going to do this through sustained spirit performance, through teaching, through mentorship, through training. You're part of the family and we want to carry you, watch you promote and advance. I mean, it's a beautiful story, man. If it's done right, if you take care of people, I think in every situation when you prioritize people and get them in the right place, you're going to exceed whatever your goals are and whatever your expectations are.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I tell you, with over 50 years worth of experience in this realm, we can keep talking all night. But I think we've given, number one, hey, how do you assess it? How do you assess the quantifiable? You know, and how do you deal with the nuance? And I think that we've given, hey, these are, if the answers to those questions are no, hey, here are the things that you might need to focus on. Right? These are the major hitters that you can focus on. And you do those things, and I gotta tell you, you're probably gonna have a pretty good team, probably gonna have a pretty good organization, depending on where you exist in that structure. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think if you're not getting what you need from the podcast, you know, find us on Instagram at Leadership State of Mind, DM us. We can certainly have other ways to, you know, coach, mentor, and come up with some new solutions for you. You got some stuff. But yeah, man, keep following us. I appreciate all the love and support. It's great to see the subscribers going up. It's great to see the followers going up. We do this for y'all. We had a vision of what this would look like, what Leadership State of Mind would look like. And I hope we're changing the way you think about leadership. So please continue to like, share, follow. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Instagram at Leadership State of Mind. Keep coming back. We'll keep dropping jewels all day, helping you become the best version of yourself. All right, man. Y'all have a good one. Be easy.
It looks like you provided a transcript of a podcast or conversation for transcription. Descript can handle transcription tasks efficiently. So if you haven't done that already, you can use Descript's transcription features to convert audio to text. If you're looking to fine-tune or correct the existing transcription, I'm here to assist. Please let me know what specific changes or edits you would like to make.